Hey, everybody. Welcome to Your Money Map, sponsored by the Alliance for Lifetime Income. I'm your host, Jean Chatzky. Very glad to have you along with me today for what I am sure is going to be a really interesting conversation, one in which I hope that you'll participate, whether you are watching us on LinkedIn, whether you're watching us on Facebook. We welcome your questions. We welcome your comments. We are excited when we just see you say hi in the chat. So let us know that you're out there and let us know if there's anything that you want us to touch on. A question that was occurring to me as I was prepping the run up for this show is, how old do you feel? I just had a birthday, not the big birthday, but a substantial enough birthday. And I was thinking about the fact that I don't think I felt my age, at least my number age, my numerical age, for a really long time. Maybe I did in my 20s, maybe I even did in my early 30s, but boy, oh boy, it has been decades since I felt the number that I see on my driver's license or on my birth certificate. Paul in DC already weighing in. He is 70. He feels 40. I'm with you. I'm 59. I don't know, maybe I feel 40. Maybe sometimes I feel a little older or a little younger. Well, my guest today, Susan Golden, says age is not just a number. In her book, Stage Not Age: How to Understand and Serve People Over 60, the fastest growing, most dynamic market in the world, she makes a case for not letting numbers define us, specifically in the second half of life. Let me tell you a little bit about her. Oh, I love this. Keep telling me how old you are and how old you feel, everybody. Christian's 51 and he feels 40. Susan is an expert, a leading expert on the innovation and entrepreneurial opportunities created by the new longevity and the 100-year life. She lectures on this topic at the leading business schools and advises startups and companies on their longevity strategies. And yes, she is the author of the book Stage Not Age, recently published by Harvard Business Review Press. She has served as a thought leader to Pivotal Ventures on their caregiving initiatives and was the founding director of the DCIX Impact Initiatives at the Stanford Distinguished Careers Institute. Susan, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for being here with me today.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm smiling because I love that you're describing an ageless society with your comments.
And that's what we're seeing from people. Lisa says that she's 68 and feels 40. A lot of people seem to feel 40. Paul plays soccer in a 40 and under league. He wrote us before that he is 70. You argue in your book that age, as we often say, is just a number. And instead, people should really be thinking of their lives in stages. What led you to this line of thinking?
So I went back to school at Stanford several years ago, which is going to become the norm after being out of college for decades and graduate programs, and learned there that people are going to be living 100-year lives. If you are in your 60s and in good health without any serious medical conditions, more than 50% of you are going to live well into your 90s. Children born since 2000 are going to, the majority are going to live past 100. We don't even know how much past. Could be 120, 125. This is a new demographic shift that is upsetting everything we ever thought about. We were all raised to think about that we lived in a 3-stage life. Our first few decades were learning years up into our 20s, 30s. Then the next few decades were our earning years. And then we all retired somewhere around 60, 65, and that's it. Well, retiring when you're 60, 65 doesn't make sense if you're going to live another 30, 40 years. You need to rethink everything you're doing all along the way. And I learned this in the program most poignantly because I was in classroom with the other fellows in the Distinguished Careers Institute, and we ranged in age from 50 to 80. And we're sitting next to students in their 20s and 30s. And I realized we're all in the same stage of life. We were all rethinking our life priorities, relaunching careers. We were in our rejuvenation period, in our renaissance period. And I began to learn that companies were putting everybody into one bucket the minute they turned to whatever age you want to pick, 60, 65, that we were all elderly, frail, senior, retirees, and it was the end. Rather than recognizing this is just the beginning, we have something that I call furtherhood ahead of us, not elderhood, but we have this 30 extra years of life, and we should be doing amazing things with it, things to look forward to. And it turns out those are some of the happiest years of your life.
So
Um,
there's so much to unpack in what you just said. But let me ask you the question that everybody's answering online. And Harish told us he's 81, but I need to know how you feel. How old are you and how old do you feel?
Me personally,
Yeah.
I am 69, and I would say I am 42.
Yeah, that 40, 42, we all seem to be kind of settled there, which is really nice. In your book, you describe not just one stage or two stages, but 18 stages. So can you take us through what some of these important stages are, and how we sort of transition into and out of them through life?
Yeah, these 18 stages, I don't believe everybody's going to go through all of them. They're certainly not going to be sequential, but there'll be several that are going to repeat over time. So you think about your first quarter of life, somewhere between 0 to 25 or 30. You're in your starting years. You're launching careers. You're growing. You're learning, and you're experimenting with a lot of things. But then at some point, we're going to move into another mega stage where we're going to be our financial priorities. We're going to be, optimizing our health. We're going to be developing financial security, and then we're going to be continuous learners because we may have stopped our education in our 20s and 30s, but in the period of 30 to 50 plus, that period where we all feel we're going to keep learning because things are changing so rapidly. And we're going to be caregiving, probably. We'll be caregiving for children, possibly for older adults at the same time. And
Mm.
those two stages, the continuous learning and the caregiving, are going to repeat at many different points in the life course. So we need to embed that into our planning and our thinking. And then we have this new gift, these 20 to 30 extra years. And we shouldn't just tack them on at the end, just as a longer retirement. Instead, many of us will take career breaks. Just last year, there was a great article in the Wall Street Journal. Here comes the 60-year career span. I'm in a 60-year career span. You're going to be in one. We might take time off for caregiving. I had, but then we're going to relaunch careers again and again and again. So that concept of that three-stage life just doesn't fit anymore in the 100-year life course. And it's a new way to think about your life, not defined by age, but what are your priorities at that point in time? And I think there's this new period that's a very exciting one for all of us to integrate. Not that we're out at the end, but we're beginning something new. And that would be somewhere between your 50s and 85 and 90. I know people in their 70s and 80s who are starting totally new careers, very different than what they had done before. And they're the fastest growing segment of the workforce, older adults.
It's such an optimistic perspective from where I sit. We are heading into 2024, as I've often pointed out on this show. 2024 is what the Alliance calls Peak 65. It is the year in which more baby boomers than ever before will turn 65 at the rate of about 12,000 a day. And the fact that these folks can embark on new careers, new chapters, new adventures is really exciting, I think. You make it sound easy. Is it easy?
No, it's not easy. But if you have a different mindset, it's easier. So if you internalize that you're old and elderly, that will reduce your lifespan by 7 years. That has been documented in the research by Becca Levy from Yale. Or if people use ageist terms at you, or marketing images that define you in a certain way, stereotype, that makes it hard. But if employers begin to recognize the value of having older workers, because of their experience, their wisdom, their emotional maturity, their loyalty, they tend not to turn over as much, and to dismiss the stereotypes that older workers have, which is that they can't learn technology, they can't learn new things. They're tired. No, they're eager. They may not want to work the same way, but it means integrating it for yourself. It means working with companies that integrate this new mindset and value set. And it means looking forward. I mean, why look back rather than look forward to something? And it's going to be hard for many people because many people don't have enough financial security for 100-year life. That is we need financial longevity to succeed in this longer lifespan. So that's a big theme, obviously, of your work, which I value so much. But it's critical that we embed this actually in high school and in college, that students need to understand they're going to have a 100-year lifespan. They need to prepare for that financially all along the way.
Yeah, absolutely. We're getting some different perspectives from people in the chat. Thomas says he's 63 years young. I love that, Thomas. Enjoys good health. He's a long distance runner now for close to 40 years and thinks he'll live well into his 90s. His biological age is probably 45 to 50. Love that, Thomas. I'm thinking of running a marathon for my 60th birthday, so hold me to that. Lisa says that she is having problems getting back into the market when the skill set is not there, i.e. computers. There's so much experience, that she feels not wanted without X, Y, and Z. You spoke about your experience being back in the classroom. What do you suggest to people like Lisa, and what sort of programs are out there for older people who do want to learn something new so that they can go on to do something new?
So there's a variety of continuous learning programs. Excuse me, sorry about that. There are a variety of continuous learning programs out there. There's about 10 universities that are offering programs like Stanford. Some are online, some are in person, some are 3 months, some are year long, where you get to take courses at the university. And that's phenomenal. But the real value of those programs is also that you're with a cohort of people like you who are relaunching their careers, rethinking. And so that is the community aspect that is so great. But there's also free programs like Older Adult Technology Services is an organization that offers free digital literacy programs in partnership with AARP, and they also work with Google on these initiatives. That being digitally literate, we're all learning ChatGPT at the moment. Next year, it'll be something else. We're all going to have to stay current on digital learning. We may learn it differently, each of us, or it might take longer, but all of us can learn new things. We learned that during COVID. Everybody learned how to do Zoom, which they didn't know. I would say the week before COVID. But the week after COVID, they all knew how to Zoom and became proficient at it over time. So there are many different types of programs. There are companies starting up to help people plan their next chapters. I can give you a list of 15 different companies, and they're actually in the book, that are starting up in this area to help people become continuous learners, to transition. And many of these resources are free for older adults. There is Senior Planet programs in different cities. So it depends on your city and your community, but this is a burgeoning area. It's hard, though. It's true. There's not a job waiting for everybody, but there are many jobs. And there's a whole initiative called Certified Age-Friendly Employers out of the Boston area that I highly recommend, and Age Friendly Institute. So employers are recognizing the importance and the value of older workers, especially in the shortages that there are in so many companies. So I think we're in a moment where it's going to be shifting. It's not quite there yet, but the more we advocate for it and the more we spotlight people like who have written in today, what they're doing. One of my favorite stories is about a physician who had to retire from his hospital as an anesthesiologist when he was 67. And he was rethinking what to do next. And he was thinking, what were the other jobs I ever had that brought me joy? And he remembered that when he was in high school, he was a lifeguard. So at age 67, instead of being a physician, he decided to become a lifeguard and trained for it, and is now doing that on the New Jersey shore. And he was featured about a year ago in the Wall Street Journal. There are many of these transitions that are totally different, but that is the beauty of these extra 30 years. It's a chance to do something that brings you joy, not just view it as just something I must do at this time of my life.
Yeah, no, absolutely. A couple of other great comments coming through from Paul. He's a substitute teacher at an elementary school at age 70. It's a blast. Numbers of age just disappear. Janine is 60. She graduated law school at 55. I can't tell you how much I love that.
I
She
love
said,
that.
I am very grateful that I never let age, but drive and experience define me. Bravo for this chat. You're making people feel good. Paul is asking, how can you connect with people who joined this webinar? Is there a community for people who are thinking of age, not stage?
Yes, there are many groups forming through certainly alumni organizations from depending on what university you went to or college you went to, have alumni organizations that are recognizing older adults want to connect and want to learn together and do things together. So that's one way. There's also an organization called the Encore Network that is trying to invite older adults to connect to each other and do these, what they're calling Encore Fellowships, which
Yep.
is working in a nonprofit organization, contributing your skills, and they pay you during that period of time, and then you're part of a community. And we're going to see more and more of these happening, where you can be matched to volunteer opportunities, teaching opportunities. And I do want to mention one of the values of being older, but being with different generations. We don't want an age segregated society. And I felt the most rejuvenating component of being at Stanford for a year in this DCI fellowship program was being with students of all different ages. And they are my friends now. And I stay connected to them. They reach out all the time, and they don't see me by my age. We just have something in common. We have common interests, and I can learn from them and they can learn from me. So becoming a mentor, and as somebody was also saying that they were teaching, is one of the most rejuvenating experiences you can have. And there are many mentorship programs where you can volunteer.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Paul is asking if I can share contact info for people on this webinar. Unfortunately, Paul, I don't have the contact info. You all are coming in from LinkedIn, you're coming in from Facebook. The best way to reach me is at mailbag@hermoney.com. And if you want to be connected to other people from this webinar and I get multiple emails, I will happily facilitate some sort of matchmaking there. I wanted to ask you about the financial issue that you raised before. 100 years, I pulled years ago, I pulled this cover of Time magazine, and I've kept it. It was a story from 20, maybe 5 years ago, maybe 10, but it was a picture of a baby on the cover of a magazine with a headline that the baby was likely to live to be 142 years old. Clearly, you know exactly what I'm talking
I
about.
use it in my slides all the time.
You are smiling, and I was petrified
Yeah.
because my feeling, my thinking is, all right, that's maybe great if you're healthy, but also how are we going to afford that? How do you see people as they age paying for their lifestyles?
So their lifestyles have to change in that we want to optimize health span, not just lifespan. If we were to survey the people on the call right now, yeah, we could ask everybody, how long do you want to live to? And maybe the majority of hands are going to go up saying, 100. But what if you can only be healthy for till you're 80? Do you still want to live to 100? And it's that kind of trade-off. We have not invested enough as a society, individually, in our health spans. And I would say that should be a life priority and a life stage throughout the life course, because we will need less money if we are healthy. We will need a far more money for somebody to care for us if we're not healthy. And we have a very broken and fragmented caregiving system in the United States. We're primarily dependent on 53 million unpaid caregivers because most people can't afford caregiving, and there's a paid caregiver shortage. And most people don't understand that Medicare does not cover in-home care. So we have many dilemmas ahead of us that need to be solved. But I think if we individually practice health span practices, and they're the things that all know, but we don't all do it. We get busy, we get tired, we watch too much TV, and we're online too much. But there are very well-known practices. It's much easier to do it in a group. So to the point of that person wanting to connect, find a community locally, a walking group, a running group, to reduce your social isolation. You can't do this alone. You can't have a successful 100-year life alone. So we all need to invest in ourselves, and we need to learn become financially literate. Most people are not, particularly women. Women are penalized, as we've talked often about, because they take time out for caregiving breaks. I did. And many women I know do. I think it's going to become the norm that everybody takes career breaks if we're living to 100, for rejuvenation, for learning. In fact, LinkedIn now enables you on your profile to indicate that you took a career break with pride and indicate what it was for, so that it becomes normalized. So to the point, how are we going to afford it? We have to educate financial literacy in high school, in college, throughout the life course. We need to teach people that they are going to need to plan for a 100-year life. And we need all sorts of new financial tools like longevity bonds and caregiving funds and 529s for ourselves, not just for our children or our grandchildren, because we're going to go back to school. It's the financial industry that's actually been at the forefront of this for a long time, recognizing that it's not just retirement savings, it's longevity. Everybody needs a longevity plan. And part of being longevity literate is being financially prepared.
Yeah, absolutely. And the Alliance has been doing a lot of great work in this area, looking at the different instruments, in terms of receiving a monthly check, protected income that will last as long as you do, so that you don't have to worry, and how that changes the perception of how you can live and how you can spend. What I liked about what you said most was that there is a lot that we can control when it comes to our health, and the impact on our finances of making the right health related decisions throughout our lives. Moving, walking those 10,000 steps a day, which is not a
It
random
doesn't even
number.
have to be 10,000.
Right.
They disputed that.
But also, eating well,
Not
being moderate.
smoking, not drinking.
Yes,
I mean, we
exactly.
getting enough sleep, being part of a community. Actually, that turns out to be the most important determinant of longevity, is being having 5 close relationships. And a lot of research is about it. You don't need 100, you don't need 1,000 Facebook friends. You need 3 to 5 people you can count on all the time, and they can count on you. And those kind of connections really increase lifespan.
When you started out writing this book, it was not a book necessarily for consumers. It's a book that is aimed at marketers, to convince them that they're going about it wrong. That when they look at people by age, not stage, they're missing some incredible opportunities. What brought you to that realization about marketers?
When I was doing the program at DCI, I got a discount, a student discount, at a bookstore and at a clothing store and all that. And I was just viewed in the same way a student was. But when I got an ARP membership, it was like I was called senior, I was called retiree. Um, and it was such a different shift between what I was feeling and what I was bucket I was being brought into. And I saw that marketers treated all people over whatever that number is, 60 or 65, is the same. And they were missing out that older adults have the majority of wealth, of disposable income, and are going to need all these new products and services to enable them to live longer and to enjoy their lives. And they were missing this opportunity. So, as a former venture capitalist, I went to all my friends and said, why aren't you investing in this? This is considered a $22 trillion economy, the longevity economy. Why aren't you investing? And they said, well, it's senior housing, fall prevention, and medication management. And I said, no, it's so much more. Yes, that's important, but there's transition planning and ways to work longer, and dating. Case in point, The Golden Bachelor that's on TV at the moment.
And we
And there's,
don't tell me if you've read the spoilers,
I,
because
no, I'm not
tomorrow
telling you
night
the,
he's
I,
making
no,
his decision.
but I'm just saying that's a market opportunity for that program that they might not have recognized a decade ago. But the entertainment, travel, education, just what you were talking about, connecting people, all of these are business opportunities that we will all need. And in fact, one of the best ways to enjoy your later years is to become what's being called an olderpreneur, an older adult who's entrepreneurial and can work in a mixed age team and develop new products and services. And so companies that are wise will start developing multi-generational products and not just marketing to the stereotype of an older adult. And there are great examples in the book of companies that have done that so well.
I was going to ask you to tell us about a couple of them, starting maybe with BMW.
Sure. So BMW has traditionally marketed as the young person's car, a sports car, and marketed thinking to the 18 to 34-year-old crowd because they have lots of disposable income. But when they analyzed who actually purchased those cars, the majority were 55 and older. But they realized to make it even a better purchase for an older adult, they might want to create some what they called stealth features, that it made it easier for an older adult to drive the BMW, like larger font size and easier entry into the car. So they were marketing still to a younger customer with features that would enable an older customer to find their product more attractive. And now they have a marvelous marketing campaign that shows vibrancy of different age groups enjoying their product. And a number of companies have begun to realize we don't have to design a product that screams old person here. It's something that many generations can enjoy and can enjoy over a lifetime, so that enhances a company's earning potential because of brand loyalty and people's user experience over many, many decades. It just might have stealth features as the person progresses.
It's so interesting because, of course, it's people in their later years who have more money.
Yeah.
Right. Once you've gone through your highest earning years, which tend to be your 50s, and have socked some money away, and the kids are perhaps through college and maybe even out of the house, you have so much more disposable income. And yet, when it comes to magazines and television networks, all they want is that younger demographic, which just never made sense to me. But when I see a comment like this one from Paul, who says, "When I go to the movies, it's a challenge to accept that I get a senior discount." I understand, although I have to say my husband loves his senior discount. He loves all discounts, but he is very, very happy to buy that senior ticket. What other companies have made good strides here? I assume that BMW has reaped additional sales because they've taken their
Absolutely,
advertising in
absolutely.
that direction.
Another great example is Warby Parker. We are all familiar with the eyeglass brand and online access and reduced pricing. And they were targeting, again, the 18 to 34-year-old consumer. You could see that in their marketing images. But they realized a number of years into the business that they were missing a huge swath of the market who needed progressive lenses. And any of you, as you get older, you understand your vision changes. And those eyeglasses could be as much as $500. So they wanted to find a way to continue to market the same hipster brand in terms of the images of what the eye frames look like to an older adult, provide them the discount to make everything user-friendly for an older adult. And it's now over 30% of their revenues. I mean, it just exploded in a whole new way. That's such an obvious thing. So they have a multi-generational product where a parent and child could go in and both get eyeglasses together, different needs, or grandparent and then a grandchild. But multi-generational products is really going to be the secret sauce going forward, because you will have brand loyalty, you'll have experience. We see that in a wonderful product, OXO, that's kitchen utensils. It was designed for somebody who had rheumatoid arthritis by her husband to make things more easily usable for her. But it's a multi-generational product. It's not just for older adults with rheumatoid arthritis. Younger people buy the OXO brand all the time. And so their marketing is to a multi-generational customer.
Right.
Which
Because
is
we
really
have to
exciting.
be able to see ourselves. If we can see ourselves, then we believe that we belong in the cohort of people who should potentially own this product. I have a lot of OXO products myself. I have them because they make a great peeler. I mean, I think I've had them in my kitchen for a long time. At the top of the show, you mentioned something that you call furtherhood. What's furtherhood?
So this is a word I made up. I ran a project where we tried to name what should we call ourselves. We don't want to be called retirees. We don't want to be called seniors. We don't want to be called elder. Not yet. Maybe in our 90s, maybe in our hundreds, but not yet. And what should we call this new period? And I had an intergenerational team of students and DCI fellows, and we came up with all these new words: welders, bloomers, early bloomers, late bloomers. And we wanted something that reflective vibrancy and that we can contribute in many different ways. But we didn't come up with a consensus word. So I came up with one and I called it furtherhood. We are going further in our lives, looking forward to it. It could be a period of great satisfaction, great what I call joy span. We talk about lifespan, we need health span, we also need joy span. And so furtherhood is a concept that it's not old age, it's not the declining years, it's something to look forward to. And the research that's come out just in the last year about happiness from some very noted Harvard research is saying that your happiest years, it's a U-shaped curve. It's in your 20s and 30s, and then you get happier in your 60s and 70s. And that's something to look forward to rather than dreading it, that we're getting old. We're all going to have something at some point. We're all going to have some impairment, some change. At some point, we're all going to need some type of caregiving, but it does not happen necessarily when you turn 60 or 65 or 75. It's further down.
Why do you think that is? Why do you think we hit another happiness apex in our 60s and 70s?
There's a number of reasons that are cited in the research. One is a sense of knowing yourself and your priorities and your values, and cherishing the relationships that you have, and being ready to contribute, and feeling like you know who you are and you don't have to please others anymore or some expectation. It's a wonderful feeling. It's very liberating. People do inventories in their 60s of friendships that are working for them, that aren't. Might have been, certain years where you were, in userships or dealships, people, where it's very transactional. But true friendships is one of the greatest gifts. And it could be with family members as well. But it's having that core group in life that can be so valuable and really cherished, that supports people.
Paul says being involved equals happiness. And Deb just weighed in. She is a college junior studying history. Tuition is free since she's 62 or older. That's just incredible, Deb. People are going to want to know where you're in school because they're going to want to get in on that deal. So please drop it in the chat so I can tell everybody. As we wrap up these conversations, Susan, we like to leave people with some tactical advice. So if you were putting a list of your top to-dos together for people who are at that peak 65-ish area, starting to go through a variety of stages, what would you tell them to do?
The first would be to define your purpose. You don't always find a purpose as much as you create a purpose, but your purpose in your 20s and 30s will most likely be rather different in your 60s and 70s and 80s. It might be the same, but knowing your purpose is one of the most important ingredients of successful aging. And that's been documented. The World Economic Forum has a longevity literacy program, and number one is purpose. Number two is community. Make sure you're part of a community. It could be a faith-based community. It could be a learning community. It could be an exercise community. You need connections. You can't do this alone. That's the richest part of life, is connecting to people. And in a routine way. There's a walking group in my neighborhood, and I know in many cities around the country. It's a very vital. It does not need to be marathon or goal-oriented in that way, but that would be. And then being prepared financially, because take stock of where you are and make sure you have the bandwidth for a longer life. And you might need to make some adjustments. One of the surprising things that's happening is people have intergenerational housing is happening in many communities where young adults can't afford to buy homes or rents are too high. And a lot of older adults have a big empty house with a lot of extra bedrooms. And there's matching services now for this that screens people and matches them. And there's, that it's like being in a college dorm where you have different, types of people living together. But that's something exciting when you think about it. It's not for everybody, but make sure your housing situation works for you. The 80% to 90% of people do not want to move into a senior living community or an assisted living community unless they absolutely have to. And they're exceedingly expensive. So creating intergenerational communities is happening in many other countries. And then I would say being digitally literate is going to be essential. And it's free through some of these programs I mentioned, but it's free in other countries. We're all going to have to take that initiative to be digitally literate, because that's how we're going to bank, how we order our food, order our transportation, how we're going to communicate, how we're going to get our health care. So it's something that takes time, easier when you do it in a group than by yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. A few questions coming into the chat first. Let's tell everybody Deb is in school at the University of Connecticut. So I would imagine that a number of state schools and maybe even community colleges have
Many
programs,
community colleges offer it for free, 60 or 62 and above.
which is fantastic to know. Um, uh, Deb also mentioned that she's got a community that started with Finance Fix, which is the financial coaching program that we offer at Her Money. Thanks for that, Deb. Yeah, it's nice to be with a group of like-minded people focusing on your finances, even if they're strangers from across the country, which is basically how we do it. Paul is asking if a replay will be available. Paul, you can always find these shows by going to the website of the Alliance for Lifetime Income. The web address is protectedincome.org. So, yes, a replay will absolutely be available. And just an ask from me before I say goodbye to Susan. For our shows for 2024, I can't even believe I'm saying that, we're going to be collecting some postcards from retirement, or if not retirement, then from the next phase of your life. So drop me a line at mailbag@hermoney.com. Tell me who you are, tell me where you watch the show, and tell me what you're doing these days in just a few sentences. That's all we need. And why you're enjoying this phase of your life would also be fantastic. Susan, thank you so much for a great conversation. If people want to learn more about you and your work, which I can tell from the comments, they absolutely do, where should they find you?
My website is stagenotage.com, and it has information how to order the book, about some of my speaking engagements, a way to communicate with me. I love get profiles of people who are doing their next chapters, and I hope you'll let me know what you're doing, because I think it's wonderful to spotlight people doing a variety of things as they rediscover their purpose and joy.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for being here. I hope that you'll come back. This was
Absolutely.
terrific. And if you all are looking for more information on this conversation specifically, you can go to our website, protectedincome.org/golden. Thanks so much for being here. As always, we'll see you next time. Bye.
Thank you, Jean.